So here's another one of my happiness classes. Today I'm going to talk about relationships. I do have like a bunch of notes that I put on the bottom of my video generally about relationships, but today I want to be really specific into about marriage. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because marriage is not working very well in England or in the West generally, and I want to talk about some of the root causes and how to fix it as well, because I don't like complaining. I don't even need to necessarily come here unless it was to say something that is really missing that could help people, and that's all I want to do. So let's just get going. So, oh, and by the way, thank you very much, Marisha. And your background is you're Christian, basically?
Yeah, I was born a Catholic.
Cool. And we did a nice video last time, so thanks for joining again. Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it last time as well. So today I want to talk about should we be trying to find or be the right person? So like maybe that sounds a bit weird, so let me just try to get in kind of a bit of an intro. A lot of people are involved or bought into this idea of romanticism, okay, which is not something that was always here. It's kind of like a mystical belief that if you find the right person, everything will be perfect. Okay, even in this very materialistic world that we live in, people still believe that. That's how in the West we seem to go about doing things. And I'm going to talk about some of the dangers of that way of thinking and what's a better way that will build longer lasting relationships, have been proved to build longer lasting relationships. So the first, and my inspiration, my knowledge comes from Islam, but you don't have to be Muslim to follow it. And I think a lot of the Christians and a lot of Christians and Jews have a lot of similar feelings about these things, so hopefully won't be too alien. So the first verse of the Holy Quran I like to quote, it talks about addiction that Westerners are suffering from in general. It's very poetic. I'm just going to roughly talk about it and then summarize it afterwards. It says, and as to those who disbelieve, so the word, and this is translated, this is from the Quran. Quran's in Arabic, and the words in Arabic are a lot more meaningful than you can directly get in English, but the word disbelieve, it means somebody who hides from the light of God. Okay, and so people who actively hide from the light of God, or the truth, let's say, okay, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. Okay, I don't know if we get to see many mirages here in England, but you ever seen a mirage by any chance?
No.
Right. So a mirage is a very special kind of illusion where you think you see some water in the distance, especially you see it in the desert especially, but when you get up to it, the illusion disappears. The thing you thought that you're really, especially when you're in a desert, you're really thirsty and you think, oh, if I can get that one thing, I'll be happy. And that's a lot the same with marriages or relationships. They think, that person who I don't have a relationship with, they kind of put them on a pedestal and say, oh, my life would change, it'll be complete and it'll be perfect if I just get in that relationship with that person. Have you ever experienced or known people who have those kind of thoughts?
Yeah, it's all brainwashing from the movies, isn't it?
And I think I follow, even myself being aware of like lots of Muslim ideals, fallen for a lot of Hollywood brainwashing myself. Like, we don't even. So it's this verse of the Holy Quran. Let's quickly read it out rather than describing it too much. As to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until, when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing. And he finds Allah, which is an ancient name for God. Even Jesus used to say Allah in Aramaic. He finds God near him, who then fully pays him his account, and Allah is swift in reckoning. So in short, what I'm saying is, never mind marriage, never mind just relationships, when you keep a distance from God, you can join in if you like. Okay, cool. This is Speaker's Corner. People openly give their opinions. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I'm used. It means nothing to me. if it's worth mentioning without distracting from the main video, if anybody who's angry, I feel sorry for them, because that means they're hurting inside their need to. He could have just expressed his point of view nicely, but he
That
didn't.
happened when Osman was interviewing
Yeah.
me. People just came past and abused him for nothing.
Yeah. And I don't.
Why didn't he explain himself? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't he say exactly why he thinks you're a liar?
Yeah. So
It's very aggressive behaviour. It really is. It's and the ladies over there are listening as well, which is don't know what you
Hope
think,
you're
but-
enjoying the show. I do talk loudly, but if you want to jump in, you can. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you can
Speaker's
join
Corner is a funny place where you can talk like this. Anyway, so generally, when you don't have a connection with God, and we can demonstrate this in many ways,
Yeah.
and it's in fact the whole of Western society is demonstrating this. You have an emptiness that can never be filled. Okay, more and more people are feeling this, and that's why depression is on the rise. And an interesting statistic, since you're a Christian, and I'm saying this as a Muslim, right? As the congregation levels and churches are going down, depression is going up. Okay, which is not surprising at all. As you leave God, okay, and this is known by psychologists, atheist psychologists will tell you, as you leave God, your life becomes more and more empty, because God is like a bedrock. All meaning comes from, and psychologists have long known that you need meaning to be happy, and most the public don't know that. So in short, you have, when you leave God or disbelieve, you have to make an effort to ignore God. You have an emptiness can never be fulfilled, and you keep in all your actions, all your deeds, finding another partner or whatever, are like a chase. You're constantly chasing and never happy. Okay, and the problems with finding somebody to marry, when you have that mindset, it's actually very shallow. You see that most people, the main way of finding somebody at the moment is through Tinder. Okay, and the way they've shown that it takes less than a second for a person to say yes or no to a person. That cannot be a very deep or meaningful relationship. Right? So when you have that, that's just like you're choosing the person to marry. You're trying to find the person to marry, just like you would try to find an iPhone. So what happens with an iPhone? People queue up. They used to queue up for a whole day, right, to get an iPhone. But then the next version of iPhone comes out and you throw it away. And it's happening to human beings. People are treating human beings like the next iPhone. So they go, oh, if only I had a relationship with person X, I'll be happy. But person Y comes up a short while after getting married, and then you feel bored of them. Can you realize you fell in love with the surface of the person, not the real person? Okay, so that's the problem. We're trying to focus on this romantic myth that if you just find the right person, you will be you'll live happily ever after. But it's not true. So that's one point. But so that's just basically, in short, your marriage and relationships have become an extension of materialism. So, and that's kind of my problem with trying to simply find the right person. I want to say the real solution is being the right person. So I'll talk about that. My next point about being the right person is like attracts like. Okay, so let's say you believe in lying. Because a lot of people do. They think if you lie, it's a shortcut to getting what you want, and it's good to get a shortcut because life is meaningless. It's just about getting stuff, and if you lie your way through, then what will happen is, if you come across a truthful person, you'll find that person really annoying because it's like, why are you telling the truth? Right? So liars will be more attracted to liars. Truthful people will be more attracted to truthful people. Right? So if you want to be in a long-lasting relationship, probably better off with good people. So I'm going to go to this verse. Good men are for good women. That's part of a short verse from the Holy Quran, right? I mean, short extract from a longer verse from the Holy Quran, right? And by the way, I can give references. I probably will give references in my comments of the video that I make, right? So always give references if you ever want them, right? And so what's happening now, like I mentioned on Tinder, people are going for people's appearances. They have these phrases like, oh, she's a 10, or she's a 1. Have you ever heard of that kind of talk? But it happens a lot. It's weird. It's becoming more and more materialistic. Like a 10 is always really good looking, and I deserve a 10, I deserve a 5, I deserve... They've put numbers on people now, which is really sad. Okay, so... but in Islam, we're told things like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said a man should seek a woman's hand. Men seek a woman's hand for 4 things. That is, her wealth, her family, her beauty, and or her piety. And he said, you, to the Muslims especially, you should put their piety first, their good quality first. And so... I've done a lot of talking. Any thoughts about that little idea? People look for people's beauty. Sometimes they marry for family, for power, some just for money. But some people marry for the person's actual qualities. What are your opinions on that?
Well, I think that this system is really false. There's no sense of community. There are no communities. People are very isolated, and my mum is actually Jewish, and I think this idea of matchmaking can sometimes be a really good thing if you're in a big community, but it's just false, isn't it? Everything is false in this society, including what you said about Tinder.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because last time I talked about relationships, I like to call it assisted marriages, because the name arranged marriages confuse people. They call it... When I say arranged marriages, people think of forced marriages, which is completely wrong. So I went to, we might call it an assisted marriage, and I'm really glad you brought up this idea about community, which doesn't really exist anymore, which is why people rely on these horrible apps like Tinder, okay, because there's no community, people don't know anybody. But because I'm part of a wide Muslim community where everybody knows everybody, and your reputation precedes you, as it were, and they won't... If you're like a really spiritual person, if you're really... Marisha's got some signs that, assalamu alaikum, hey, my cousin Muhammad has joined us, maybe I'll get you in view, let's get you in view, everybody in view. So we're talking about marriage and how to find the right person and things like that. So we said, it's not just about finding the right person, but being the right person. And Marisha brought up about assisted or arranged marriages. And the reason why we depend on these apps is because nobody knows anybody anymore. And so I think it's really important, if you want a long-lasting relationship, and this is more in line with nature, because men and women are usually quite shy of each other and not trusting of each other for good reason, okay, because men can't be trusted for a lot of reasons, right? In Islam it says, what was it, like... but anyway, generally we're not supposed to be together privately because all sorts of things go wrong, right? There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, a man and a woman together, if they are alone together, a third is with them, which is the devil, right? Which is naturally what happens, right?
As long as they are not married. If they are married, then of course they can.
Okay, yeah, of course they should be alone together if they're married. That's a different story, right? Yeah. They should be alone together a lot of the time, right?
I'm just gonna see what's going on.
Sure, you enjoy. Okay. Anyway,
looks quite interesting up there.
Yeah. Anyway, so glad you brought up this whole thing about arranged marriages. I talked about that before. Do check out, or maybe I'll put a link to that video where I discussed that. But you need community for that, and so that's something I talked about the need for. And one thing I want to talk about, this is an idea, I'm interested in what you think about this, okay? It says, there's a verse of the Holy Quran, so on one side you should marry a good person, because what happens with a good person is that this kind of idea of romance wears off, okay? That doesn't mean you stop liking the person. In fact, your relationship should get better over time if you're a good person. I think that happens normally. If you're a nice person, people slowly get to know you and they get to like you more. And if you're an evil person, they get to know you and they get distance from you, right? and I think I've done a little bit of study of the things that really keep people together is kindness, and that's underrated, right? Because it's always. But I'm trying to make the video short, so I'll stick on. I'll leave that idea for a second. I'm going to go to the other side, which is the wrong kind of person to marry, this is something people experience a lot, and they've been put off from marriage a lot, okay? And there's a verse of the Holy Quran says, and marry not the idolatrous women. So you can take it like sort of in a very, what's it called, direct way or more metaphorical way. So we have in our society, we are very idolatrous in the sense that we have a lot of idols. We've got what's that? You idolize all sorts of money, celebrity, whatever, right? So if you take those kind of people as a wife or a husband, then she may highly please you. Okay, so what happens, one of the reasons why people fall in love is because for a short period of time they show their best side and they're in love and they're really excited. But if they don't have strong values, what happens is you will experience hell in this life. What I mean by that, and people misunderstand a lot of this metaphorical language, okay? I don't know what you think about this idea. If you marry a really horrible person, you will really hate your life, and this is what I describe as hell. What do you think about that?
Well, it's quite interesting because one of the questions that Usman asked me was in the Bible where it says that if a woman is married and she goes with another man, she commits adultery. And he asked me if I thought that was right, and I said, yeah. I said, I've lived that because I had a bad marriage, but I never wanted to marry anyone else because I believe in marriage. And of course, he explained that Muslim slightly different. They can divorce and stuff.
But it's not encouraged. It's the worst of the freedoms. It's a freedom you're allowed, but it's highly discouraged because marriage is kind of the center of the beginning of communities. So we have marriage, then only then can you have a strong family, then can you have a strong community. So all these things begin with that. So anyway, you were going to say something.
No, I wasn't. I was going to say about the ravens, actually. There's an increase in ravens, and they're not ravens, actually, they're crows, but ravens are the only birds that can fly upside down. I don't know if you know.
Oh, okay, you're a bit of an enthusiast with the animals generally. I'm getting to know Marisha. Yeah. But let's just stick on. What were you going to say? You're talking about you had a difficult marriage, and I was talking about marrying the wrong person who makes your life a hell, living hell. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I didn't see it like that because I had Jesus, so I never felt lonely or anything. But I suppose, if you've not got God, then if you're in a bad marriage, that could be seen as without a doubt.
Okay. So I talk to a lot of people, especially who kind of given up on marriage or had a bad experience, and so it's very. And one of the reasons people get trapped is what I'm trying to get across is that people get trapped on the short-term exciting relationships. But those people, anybody who's in a short-term relationship, they can be exciting at times. It's like eating sugar versus having vegetables. In the short term, you get a little bit excited, and they will do lots of crazy things, and they'll seem exciting. But those people are really broken people who they seem exciting in the short term, but ruin your life and make you miserable. And so that's what God describes. They call to the fire such people. Okay. Allah calls to heaven. So God wants you to have a really peaceful and happy life, okay, and is advising against people who have a sort of an idolatrous mindset, people who idolize things and who are away from God. So those are some ideas about how to be the right person. And I just want to throw in one more idea because to keep it short, about the importance of marriage, because the people don't value marriage anymore. They've seen fail, one thing, but also they don't have values so much anymore. When you don't have values, like when you give up on religion and things, there's no bedrock on what you stand for, and then you start making up all sorts of values. So I'm going to talk about one more idea. Whoever God or Allah has provided with a righteous wife, Allah has assisted him in half of his religion. Let him fear Allah regarding the second half. So I'm going to make that really short. Marriage is half of faith in Islam. But why? What's the wisdom? So there's two sides to it. When you're in a marriage, it's a commitment, okay, and you are forced, if your marriage is to survive, to be kind, to be generous, to think about others other than your own selfish needs all the time. And this is what psychologists have seen. When you're not married, you don't actually develop so much. Okay, you'll see from people who are not married, even from their dress sense, they look more like children. They're kind of like wearing trainers and whatever, flashy colours or whatever. That's what I've noticed, right? I don't know if you ever, let me just ask around, but I can see from a person's clothes and appearance a lot about them. If they've been married, what kind of relationships, how long is the relationship been going on for. I don't know, have you ever noticed anything like that?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
What about you, since you're here?
I would say yes. I think they'll dress more mature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're more calm and at peace with themselves, right? But it takes effort. So it takes a lot of skill. This is why people don't last in marriage, because they don't realize the amount of skill it takes to be married. When I say skill, it's not like football skills. It's like spiritual skills, being good and developing personal development. Okay, but the other side of it is when you do that, you're a much happier and better person. Because if you don't do that, let's say you don't have the ability to put others before yourself, right? Then you don't have any relationship with anybody. And also you're going to be a miserable person, because according to psychologists like Viktor Frankl, he said happiness comes from meaning, and meaning is about doing things for other people. So if you don't practice doing things for other people, and you don't put yourself in that situation when you have to on a daily basis, you're waking up with somebody and waking up with your children, you're not putting them first and things like that, you can't really be a happy person. Your life is meaningless, and you know it as well. Everybody knows it, even if they don't tell other people. They know, if you know that your life is all about yourself, then you know you're a selfish person. You will never be happy. Okay, and so I'm just going to throw in a few ideas. Who's heard of Jordan Peterson? No? Okay, he's like a really popular psychologist at the moment, and he said a lot of good things. He considers himself a Christian, but he's not. I don't think he's sure about the existence of God. It's a bit weird, but anyway. And I mention him because people look for him to advise, but at the same time he said some interesting things about marriage. He said it's really hard. This is where I want to finish off, just because I want to bring some key points that people really struggle with. I'm just going to keep it to one, actually, right? Okay, he says it's very hard to stay in love or stay attracted to your partner, and I'm going to tell you how you can do, because I think he's completely wrong. Okay, because he's got a very limited idea of, or limited spiritual insight, I would say, right? And one way to do it is there's in Islam, and maybe you can tell me in Christianity as well. Simply looking lustfully at other people is called adultery of the eyes. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And if you hate someone in Christianity, that's murder.
Right, okay, so that's interesting.
Serious, very serious.
I love that. I like learning from different people like that. That's really nice. Okay. So, and it's been shown by psychologists, so if you're looking at other people instead of your wife in a lustful way, imagining, so it's very easy to do. It's very easy. I'm not saying anybody's perfect, because your eyes, your thoughts kind of wander and you have to try to control that. But they've shown that people who look at pornography, which is essentially looking at other people lustfully, their marriages don't last much. And it shouldn't be surprising, because what you're doing, remember, first of all, pornography is acting. It's not real. Okay, the people who are professionals will tell you that they don't even feel anything when they're doing it because they're 100% putting on a show. Okay, and it's a really horrible people are miserable, suicidal, people who do that, right? Okay, so but what's happening in the person's mind is that they watched let's say 100 videos, right? 100 pornographic videos. They'll say, I wish my wife's lips were like that. I wish my wife's hair was like this, and let's say some other rude bits and all this kind of stuff. And they put together a non-existent imaginary person and compare the poor wife from that. And then what happens is you hate the person you should love. And you could keep going on describing. So what you're doing is you're ruining your own life.
It destroys your brain cells. Did you know that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you're having a weird relationship with the screen where you're trying to imagine the person is having that, and you're having but you stop having physical relationships, and it's just, so you are messing up your brain as well. It's also like playing too many computer games where you kill each other, and that messes up your brains as well, right?
Interested in Christianity, it amuses my daughter when I told her. But it's to keep custody of your eyes. Like sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you see a really attractive man, in the summer, so you look down, you look away immediately. You don't look. So they call that custody of the eyes.
That's beautiful.
It's a Catholic thing.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. You might find it strange, but I often say to Christians, I wish Christians would practice their religion.
Yeah.
And if they did, they'll be much happier. And it might sound very strange coming from a Muslim, but it's actually not, because in the Quran it says, come together in a word that you agree on. A word means like the things you agree on. And beginning with that you believe in one God, and then everything else, So kind of to summarize, there's some kind of points that I would say, what am I talking about? Some points that if you practice them, and I don't think enough people take them, I hope you take these ideas seriously, because they'll massively improve your life. They've massively improved my life. I've fallen for a lot of these mistakes, right? And I've worked on them, and I'm always working on them. They will massively change your life and make you much, much happier as a result. So thank you very much, both of you, for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.